CPMS or to force then these kinds of changes. Okay, and I'm out of time. Thanks.
The next speaker, who is Karina Malten, are you here? Because the presentation isn't there, so I'm going to put it on. Karina, Educación Virtual en Nicaragua. No? Okay. Any questions for Heikki? Oh, sorry. Okay. Karina Mentes? No? Okay. Any questions for Heikki? We have about 2 minutes. Well, actually we have more time, I think. Actually, you might have a lot of questions. Yes?
This 1 and 2 and 3.
Just a quick comment, probably. What I see, we went through the same thing, I believe, and what we found is almost everything, and I believe you say it yourself, almost everything are logistic and people's problems. If that fails, the students and also the teacher, but the students will say that the culprit, it's Moodle. Moodle should be the guilt issue, and it isn't. So be very aware of those issues, because they will say that the e-assessment, it's bad, then Moodle is bad. So even though it has anything to do with Moodle. So just a comment.
You said that one of the biggest challenges going forward was educating the academics into how to use a quiz instead of an essay. That's my problem too. Have you got any advice about?
I have great advice actually.
We brought over these medical professors from Leeds, I believe, who had been using quizzes for many years, and they had gathered like evidence like on the advantages of having open-ended essay questions or single best answers or different kinds of question types, and they gave this 2-day workshop, very evidence-based, which medical practitioners like, on on how to test your students effectively on learning. And because it was coming from respected medical professors who give these kinds of talks all over the world, nobody questioned their advice. So that was a big step as an organization, as a community, when these respected international seniors told them that this is the way to do it. Single best answer quizzes, go for it.
Just, in fact, I have 2 questions. The first one is, you might have already said that, what type of question do you ask in a test, in a quiz setting? Is it multiple choice or more involved than that? You said essay.
Can you ask the second one?
And the second one is, what is the proportion of teachers not involved in the process, or who don't want to be involved in the process?
Yeah, great, thanks. So historically, the question types mostly used in the faculty. There were true and false questions, which anybody who knows something about quiz statistics can tell that they're a terrible way of measuring knowledge. And then the other question type was essay question. But now there's this pressure of switching into single best answer, multiple choice answer questions. So where you only can select one, clearly the best alternative. So that's now the organizational sort of pressure, peer pressure going on. I'm not sure who was first.
Just a quick one, carrying on please, because you say they can bring their own device. Yeah. How do you make sure that there's no cheating, for example?
Yeah, that's the Safe Exam browser bit. So it's a software that integrates with Moodle. sorry, I wasn't clear about this in the beginning. So it's a software that integrates with Moodle that locks down the browser, so you can't exit the Moodle quiz once you start it until the quiz ends, and then you have this escape link, the quit link. Yeah, so it's safe exam browser. And for those of you who weren't in the morning session, check out the roadmap for 3.9, because there's some great changes for us safe exam browser users. Yes, yes.
In a nursing school, we do performance assessment with video and do peer and self-assessment, and that avoids a lot of the quiz problems.
Yeah, that's a great point also, and there's also this kind of self-assessment going on in the faculty, but I think there's this difference that nobody's claiming that anybody's learning by doing these quizzes. They're strictly about assessing, like discriminating between students, and then there's a lot of teaching going on where there's given feedback to improve learning. So there's this distinction. Like, I don't think there's much evidence that you don't learn doing quizzes. That's strictly for testing your knowledge. And then the feedback that improves learning is given elsewhere, doing these kind of self-assessments or other kinds of formative assessment.
Any more questions? We do have about 5 more minutes, because otherwise we will wait until 10 past for the next presentation, because some people like to come in and we don't want them to miss it. No more questions? Yep, one over there. Yes, if we could all use the microphones, please, so that the translators can hear us.
Thank you. We also cooperate with the medical faculty in Czech Republic, and they also use quiz. And like the most popular type of the question is add a mark to the picture, where they use like sculptures and some pictures of medicine stuff. So my question is if you also use this type of question because you work in the medicine faculty, and if it's used well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, some like anatomy courses or radiology courses or then dental science courses, teachers, they especially like those kinds of question types. So yeah, so they get used also quite a lot. Yeah.
I think my second question, how is the feedback from the students about this type of questions? Do they like it or not?
The drag into the picture kind of questions. I'm not sure if we've asked that systematically, so I can't answer that, sorry. Yeah.
No more questions? Right, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you again. We're just going to wait about just over 4 minutes so that we'll start on time for the next presentation. going to go with our next 7-minute PICO presentation, which is, as you can see, introducing Moodle as a learning management system at RWTH Aachen University. And we have Suzanne Toubiac, who's going to present it on behalf of herself and her colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Suzanne, and I think I better start because I only have 7 minutes. So, okay. So when we talk about learning management system, we often talk about technical developments, and we talk about the didactic use. But I would like to take a step back because I think also the implementation of a Moodle system at the big university, it's a challenge in itself, and it's not that easy. So let's have a look on the how-to. And currently over 55,000 people are studying or working at RWTH Aachen University, and we already had implemented an own learning management system in 2006, but in 2017 the university management decided to change its LMS to Moodle. So we start in 2017 with about 12 courses, and then we continuously increase the number of courses and users involved into our pilot stages until the regular operation in 2019. So that was quite tough. What's also very complex is this slide here. As you can see, there are a lot of departments and people who decide how to use Moodle at the university. It's quite too complex to explain it in detail. But before the change over to the new Moodle system, the users contacted first only this department, and now we just changed a little bit the support structures that the users now contact the IT service desk first, and then the IT service desk answers the users directly, or the IT service desk contacts the specialist department. So, okay. So that is very, very complex. And what challenges are we facing during this implementation and during operation? So first of all, the connection to the IT infrastructure of RWTH University is, of course, very complex, but also focusing more on the political issues and on external requirements. We have, of course, data protection and all these issues we have to keep in mind. And the change responsibilities between the university's institutions is also quite tough because the users are very familiar with the old support structures and old learning management system. And when you change actually running system to another system, the users are complaining. And they can't really understand why you're doing this. And also this user group, it's a big user group, and so it's quite diverse, and we have very different support requirements. Of course, different affinities to digital methods. We have different disciplinary traditions. We have multilingual user groups, so they speak German and English, or only English. And we have, of course, lecturers and students. And I think these two groups have very, very different perspectives on using Moodle, which means that lecturers have a more active role as managers. They design the course rooms, and so their support needs is that they actually need very detailed consulting and trainings. On the other hand side, we have the students who have primarily a passive role as participants. They can't really design their course rooms, so what they actually need support is quick information. They want to access the course rooms, but of course they don't need very detailed information. So how do you capture actually the user's needs? Because we think that's very important, because the system has to be for the users. And of course they contact us when they have problems, but we don't think that this is sufficient. So we conduct online user surveys in German and English, and we combine quantitative questions with qualitative questions here. Okay, so just I've got only a few pictures here. So one question is, of course, how do the people grade us? I think it's it's not very, it's trivial, but I think it's very important because usually we only have the contact with the users because they're complaining and they have problems. And therefore, it's for us very important to have this user survey just to see that how we perform in total. So here we can see that we're not that bad. Okay, and coming back to the support, we also asked what help did you use during the summer semester, for example, here. And here we can see that people need the email support and online documentation, but it's very, very interesting that they also use the help by other students. So the multipliers here, the students, the lecturers, other colleagues, they are really the important persons and we have to make use of them. And when we would look into this, into that in detail, like for example with our qualitative questions, we can see it also here that the lecturers have other needs than students. Okay. How do we cope with all that? First of all, I think it's important to use and to combine a few methods to capture the user's needs. As I said, it's not sufficient only to have a look on our tickets and how when people complain. I think that's not sufficient here. Then we have various communication channels and support structures for all these different user groups, and that is really time consuming to do this. Okay, I'm coming to an end. And then we make use of marketing and social media communication because we think then we can just contact the users in a more targeted manner. And also to explain our restrictions. I think that's also very important. And we use, of course, multipliers. We train lecturers, but we also cooperate with student councils and the faculties because it's very, very important that they are aware of how to use Moodle and where to get help very quickly. Okay, I think that's it. And if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. And if you need more information about our user surveys and how we're doing this, then just ask me or write me an email if you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So again, we have time for one question, but while Suzanne is answering the question or questions, if Jean-François is here, would you like to come and we'll organize your presentation? Any questions for Suzanne?
Thank you. What is your feeling now? How happy users do you have in Moodle?
Wow. It's very difficult to answer because there's so many different users, and users always have like their own perspectives. For some users, they say, well, I need more, like for example, lecturers. They say, I need more in-depth information, detailed information. And the students, for example, because the students can't really design the courses, they're quite passive. And they say, I don't want to have so many features or so many options in Moodle, and the documentation is too big for me because I can't really find the information I need. And that's actually, I think that's sometimes really, really hard. So we're trying to have like this big support offer. Because it's so difficult. We're not happy in total, but it's not that bad like sometimes the emails. You could think because of the emails people send us.
Yeah, and it's only a small proportion of the people who send you the email, right?
Of course it's a small proportion, but sometimes, of course, they can be really harsh. So.
Yeah, I feel you.
They want the old system back. It's like, please, I want the old system back. Some of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. when 1 and 1 sometimes has to make 3. And it is by Nicolas Dunant and Jeff van der Poel from the University of Lausanne. And over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you. So, hello. We're going to try and explain what processes we have put and we still are putting in place to provide Moodle support. First, my name is Nicolas and I'm Moodle manager and systems administrator at our university. And my colleague Jeff is in charge of the coordination and communication with the faculty. So I'm going to try to use this now. So the University of Lausanne in a few words. So it's a small town on the shores of Lake Geneva in Switzerland. It's about 15,000 students, 2,000 faculty, and that's about it. Our Moodle is quite somewhat tuned to our special needs, so it's linked to many of our different IT systems. Would it be organizational databases or external tools? We also have an in-house Cultura implementation that allows to do everything from Moodle without touching Cultura at all, along with the whole set of other tools that are communicating with Moodle. So we started Moodle in 2004. I think that used to be Moodle 1.6 at the time, and now we're on our current IT system since 2012. That's when we shifted to Moodle 2.0, I think, or 2.1. We've got 20,000 active users, so that's about 20,000 users per week. And 2,000 active courses each semester. We have quite a lot compared to other Swiss institutions active third-party plugins. We've got about 20 third-party plugins and 20 plugins which we made ourselves in-house. Some are really specific to our usages and are not public, but some are public. And among these you can find Group Choice, which is a public plugin that we developed in-house. Fork of the PDF annotation plugin, which we called Annotate PDF Advanced, which I'll talk about in a minute and provides a few extra features. And Merge Users, that's more of an admin tool, maybe it's a bit more esoteric, but it's also quite used. So all in all, it's 9 public plugins, and 2 more in the pipe have been submitted in the plugin database. And then hopefully they'll be released soon if they meet the expectations from the evaluators. And then I'm going to hand.
Yes. Okay, so the main challenge was at the beginning to find a link to the needs of teachers and the various demand, and to be able to, year after year, structuring the demand, not answering all the question and all the specific demands. So basically, that's when they created the RESET, Interfaculty Network for Teaching and Technologies in 2006. So the aim of RESET is just to use a soft approach, also really close to the teachers and not something too much centralized. It is supported by faculty's instructional designers. Each faculty, each school, we have an instructional designer, and his role is to be close to the teachers and listen to their needs. And our team is the one who is coordinating the network. We have to work together with those instructional designers, and we have to implement Moodle, and we have also a lot of processes that we implemented. Sorry. So the process we implemented for years, and is the process that was leaving us able to manage with all those demands, is that basically we meet instructional designer every month in a half-a-day session, and their job is to come up with all the needs of the teacher. We structure them, and we always go to 4-point process. The first process, is the need well identified, and then what kind of instructional scenario is pushed. Sometimes it's shared with other faculties. And the first reflex we have is that, okay, can we use Moodle for that? Or do we have to develop? Or we use Moodle, we use existing plugins, or do we have to try to create another plugin? And when we decide to develop or not, then we enter a process here on a workflow. So basically each demand is structured on a workflow, and the workflow is updated every month in the meeting we have with the instructional designer. So we don't lose and we don't run after people. Also important, every time we are creating a new function, every time is a new instructional scenario developed, it's an information process, and a note is shared with the community through our communication space called EET. And also for the heavier development, because a small team such as us could not afford huge development, University of Lausanne set up the Pedagogical Innovation Fund. Every year, teachers can apply to it, and they can receive up to almost 30,000 euros. And sometimes the innovation is one development, sometimes it's developed by our team, sometimes it's developed by external people, but that's a fund that allows us sometimes to have a little push on the dev side as well. Back to Nicolas.
So here's a bit more detail about some of the plugins we put in place. What's interesting about Moodle, as you know, is that it's completely customizable. You can program anything you want to it, as long as you can imagine it. It means you can do it, which is not always a good idea, but we're trying to keep things straight. One of the reasons we developed this was a faculty, a teacher asked us about an extension of the existing annotation tool, and he wanted something very specific, different types of annotation, not only highlighting and drawing on the PDF. So what we always do when we have a new request feature is that we try to assess what the benefit could be for the whole faculty and not just for the one teacher who asked for it. Obviously, we need to balance that. And here what we've done is something that's more customizable. We've got different types of annotations. We've got an annotation palette that the teacher can use, that you can see up here. So he can build his own tools. He can reuse his own tool palettes, and so that's one of the things that we did here. Another thing that we developed, and also, again, that's been pushed to the public community, is the merge user account. It came up from a forum discussion on the Moodle forums, and now it's a full-featured plugin. The thing with the Moodle plugin development that is positive for us is that when you publish it in the open source community, it raises the bar. It makes us to be more stringent about how we code things. But the return on investment is very good because we've got features, feedback from other institutions, other programmers, other people that use these plugins in their institution. And group choice is the last example I want to speak about. Is a feature that was always needed for everyone, and we've got good feedback about that because people have been contributing it and using it in many places in the world. Thank you.
Okay, again, time for one question, and while the gentlemen are answering the question, do we have Roland and Nali here? Yes, do you want to come up and we'll make sure your presentation is ready? And if you'd like to ask any questions, we have about 2.5 minutes. And if you put your hands up and make sure we can get a microphone to you.
All right, no questions. So thank you very much.
If you move along down, please move along to begin. Okay, everyone. Thank you. We're going to start with our next presentation. We're going to start with our next presentation. And we have recording and tracking student attendance online with Moodle with Nali and Roland Sherwood. And this is actually a 15-minute presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for. Thank you very much as well. Hopefully, you can all hear us okay. Very quickly, again, thank you for joining us here today. My name is Roland Sherwood. I'm the manager for educational technologies at Zhenjiaotong Liverpool University in China. And with me is my wonderful colleague, Nali, who is an educational technologist at that institution as well. Very quickly, there are several things we wanted to do in this presentation today. The first of which is just to give you some idea of who we are and where we're coming from, as well as the background to why we are recording attendance on on Moodle. ICE is the name of our Moodle instance. And some other issues and things that went along with this process of introducing recording attendance online. So very quickly, just in terms of who we are, this is our new campus in Suzhou City in China. We are a relatively new institution, founded only about 12, 13 years ago. We are the product of two universities, Liverpool University in the UK and Zhenjiaotong University in China. We have about 14,000 students, although I think that's gone up this year. We teach in English across the board, which is great for people like me who have very limited Chinese ability. And we are very, very focused on using technologies to support teaching and learning within our institution. We've also been long-term users of Moodle, and this year we actually hosted the first MoodleMoot in China, in mainland China. We had a bunch of people come to our campus to participate in that event as well. So that's just a little bit about who we are. The background to what we're here to talk about today, which is recording attendance online, I'll just take you through some of the reasons that this process started for us. Before last year at our institution, we had no requirements around attendance reporting. Our teachers were teaching, doing what they do, and they weren't required in any way to record attendance. Where certain departments did, of their own volition, did institute attendance policies, it was usually the case of recording attendance on paper like this. However, as is the case in China, the government very often issues decrees and demands which can have a severe and quite major impact on institutions, educational institutions in particular. And last year, they told us that you now must record attendance for all of your students, particularly international students who, if they don't attend enough of their teaching sessions, they will not have their visa renewed to continue their studies. So we had very little choice about this. It wasn't something that we especially wanted to do, I think, but we were in the position of having to comply with this governmental request. We explored lots and lots of different existing solutions relating to attendance, lots of hardware-based solutions and even some online software-based solutions as well. And we found lots of problems with lots of these different devices. We looked at card scanners, ID card scanners, biometric input systems. We looked at some strange systems where you put a Bluetooth dongle in, it emits an audio noise which is above the hearing of people's ears. We looked at all kinds of different things, and we found a problem with all of them really, which is a lot of the times they're hardware based, so that means there's issues to do with maintenance and costs and things like that, replacements. We found that they were not always very easy to use, not easy for teachers to use, not easy for students to use. And we found, in the case of many of them, there were quite simple and easy ways to cheat the system. Students, for example, bringing multiple cards of their friends along to the sessions and things like that. And that led us to look elsewhere and to look back to what we already had in place, which was Moodle. And we were aware of a plugin that allows people to record attendance for teaching sessions. This is that plugin if you're not familiar with it. What we liked about this, again, is the fact that it exists in Moodle. We already had Moodle. We didn't need to install hardware across the university. We didn't need to train people. We already had a Moodle system in place. And what we liked also is that because it's a software-based system, it can be continually updated and improved. We can customize it ourselves, of course, as well. We're not going to be paying for additional licenses or hardware upgrades in the future and things like that. One other thing that was really important for us also in relation to doing things online with Moodle is the ability for data around attendance to be easily shared across the organization. Again, the solutions that we looked at in other ways, they didn't do a very good job of allowing, for example, a teacher to share attendance data with our administrative services teams. I'm going to hand over very quickly to my colleague, Lena, and she's going to just explain quickly about some of the development issues as well.
Thank you, Roland. Yeah, I'll quickly talk about the development. As at the beginning, I have distributed some user accounts, but it's a pity we don't have time for you to try it. So actually, there's always something that we cannot find from the original plugin. So for us, there are two main features. We cannot find it. It was not covered in the original plugin. So what we do, we then worked with the developer. So the two main features, one is we want to restrict the students can only take the attendance in the classrooms. So this is what we want. And then the second one is for the timetabling information. We want it to be imported into the attendance plugin so that teachers, they don't need to create the sessions manually. That's a big task for teachers. So these two main features, we worked with Catalyst, the Moodle partner, in particular Dan Marsden. So because of them, we have these two main features. And now, before we put it for all the teachers, we do a lot of tests to make sure the function is stable, and we find some bugs, and then they help us to fix. This is a picture of our classroom, and the students, for every teaching sessions, they are using this attendance plugin all over the whole campus. Yeah, this is how we develop the features. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lena. I'm sorry, one thing, Lena did mention this earlier, one thing we did want to do today was to give you a quick demo. Basically, our students will use their own mobile devices and scan a QR code in order to record their attendance. I'm really sorry that we couldn't show you that today. But that's why, again, we approached the developer directly to incorporate some of those additional features for us. Very quickly, I'd just like to talk about how we also rolled this out across our institution. We did this in a number of different ways. We obviously needed to interact and consult with staff about this. And we basically ended up briefing staff department by department right across the university and explaining why this change was coming, what they were expected to be doing in terms of recording attendance, and answering any questions or issues that might arise from them. And there were lots and lots of questions and issues, as you can probably imagine. We also then proceeded on a training program for all departments as well. We went into each department, we showed them what they had to do within Moodle to initiate the attendance recording process. And again, just walk people through until they felt comfortable and familiar using the technology. We also produced a variety of support resources, video guides and tutorials and things like that to further provide support to teachers if they needed it. Again, these are just a few examples of some of those sessions that we were delivering to departments. This is the online side of things that we developed to answer questions and provide some overviews of how the process worked. I should be very frank and honest about some of the challenges that we encountered as part of this process as well. we had quite a few issues of a technical nature. Our students, again, are using their own devices to scan these QR codes, but they are required to use our institutional Wi-Fi so that we have their IP range locked down. And that's great in principle, but when you have, as we do, I think about 300 teaching rooms, and not all of those rooms are equipped with reliable, good Wi-Fi, it can be very problematic sometimes. But after almost 2 years of doing this, we've now managed to, I think, iron out most of those issues. We also had problems with user devices. We have a lot of students using a wide range of sometimes very, very strange Android-based devices. And in the Chinese context, that really is a complex area. There's all kinds of different versions of Android in China. So we had issues with, again, their ability to use the technology that they were being asked and expected to use. And again, in terms of familiarizing users, you know, we did do our best to do this, but we did get teachers coming back to us and saying, I really don't know how to do any of the things that you're asking us to do. And also students, I think, in some cases, they weren't properly supported by their teachers. However, with all of those things said, there have been quite a few benefits for us as a result of this process. We now record 2,500 plus teaching sessions across our campus every week using this approach. Every teaching session in our university uses this approach to recording attendance now. We do annual surveys with our staff and students, and they also tell us that for many of them, this approach to recording attendance, particularly in large classes where they have sometimes 300-400 students in a room, is something that they really value and appreciate. And we even have some students who've told us that they're very happy and grateful to be able to record attendance in this way fairly easily. We have satisfied our government's directive in China. And one of the really good things about this is, as an added bonus, in some ways, it's increased our ability to identify at-risk students, those students who are perhaps not attending regularly, or you know, there's some kind of problematic issues around their attendance. We're now able to identify them as a result of being able to share all of that data very quickly and easily to people who work and can provide support to those students. Also, it's contributed to some research projects internally within our organisation. We're able, again, to identify students and patterns of behaviour and things like that, that, again, allow us to target support resources to them more effectively. So I think that's all we had time for today. Thank you very, very much for listening. I don't know if there are any questions relating to that.
Yeah, thank you very much, first of all. We have 5 minutes for questions. If you can make sure you ask your question into the microphone.
I wondered if you had any screenshots or whether you could just describe the interface on the student's phone, like can they see their attendance over time, and what the institution sees?
Yeah, again, I wish I could bring it up for you. I did try earlier, but unfortunately the network is just so slow, and our Moodle instance is in China, so it's really slow to access. Students can see, yes, they can see every session that they have recorded as being present at, and they even can see things like percentages and averages of attendance and things like that. So they get a range of data around their own attendance as well as the average attendance in their cohorts as well.
Yes, in Japan, attendance is also required for everything, and we, like many plugins, we've developed our own version of the attendance module, but I think yours is more complex situation. And also dealing with kanji and various forms of language we've had to change, and date formats and so on. So I think, I hope this is part of the plugins database, and it will contribute to better attendance modules than we have been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yes, the attendance plugin that we're using right now is the standard one that you can find on the database, moodle.org. But we have contributed, obviously, to the development of some particular features, and we're very happy to be able to share and offer those features back to the community. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Do you have a report for the whole school? Can you pull that down? We made a block that does that.
Yes, we do. We can generate a number of reports out of the existing attendance plugin as it is now. We also have an integration with Zula Analytics, so we can also take the attendance data, the raw data from the database, and with that system, with Zula, we can manipulate it and do some really interesting things on its own as well. So yeah, reporting for us is a really, really critical thing around this kind of data. Yeah, thanks.
What if a student forgets the phone or the batteries?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So basically, all students are, and when they record their attendance with the QR code that's displayed on the screen, we have a big message at the top that says, if you can't record your attendance successfully, at the end of the session, please go and talk to your teacher and they will record your attendance manually. Yeah, the teacher just does a couple of clicks and it's done basically. Yeah.
Really great. I'm also being forced to record attendance for certification purposes, but yeah, congratulations for this very great.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So the manual recording allows lecturers to tell whether a student has been late or left early. So when students scan the QR code, can they, how is that, is it just a binary thing, yes or no, attendance?
No, it can be pretty much anything you want. So within the attendance recording area that's available to teachers, you can define different statuses. You can have as many as you like. So we have a standard set, which is present, authorized absence, and absent. But you can add whatever you like. And the really nice thing is you can define what they are actually worth. So for us, for example, authorized absence is worth the same as authorized absence is worth the same as being present. It's something that the teacher acknowledges. But you can define that, you can basically assign points to different values which affect their overall percentages at the end of the semester. So yeah, you can have whatever you prefer or need in your institution. Yeah, I can take you through some of that if you'd like after the session, sure. Yeah.
So just want to ask, did I understand correctly that instead of the phone's location services, you control the location of the student by the IP address? Did you consider using the phone GPS instead?
We did consider that. We were thinking, how can we lock it down to our campus? How can we make sure our students are actually where they should be when they record attendance? And we opted for IP locking, basically. So you have to be, again, you have to be logged onto our institutional Wi-Fi to be able to do that. And then also you have to be in the right building because each of our buildings has their own IP range. So we do it that way. With that said, however, there is a new version of the plugin due to be released very soon that Dan's working on, which will do away with all of that, the need to lock anything down to IP. And the reason for that, which is really, really cool, is the QR code will automatically regenerate every 15 seconds or so. So unless you can see it, unless you're actually there to see that and scan it at that time, you can't share it on the internet, you can't take a picture because it just automatically gets cut off after 15 seconds. Exactly. Yeah, so that's coming, and for us that will be, you know, we can just then open it up to any IP range. It doesn't matter at all, basically. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, one last question, and then we're going to move on. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
It was already answered. Yeah. Because these kind of issues. So VPN and all of those. That's okay. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you again, both of you. Thank you. 15 minutes. Yes. You've got two more. This one, and then one more, and then 15.
you like to walk outside? This isn't work
If you're coming in, can you make sure that you move down and get seats in the middle as well? Because we're very full. There's a seat there. Seat there. Okay, and then if you can close the doors at the back so we don't get anyone else in. Right, okay, we're just about to begin our next presentation, which is 15-minute presentation by Michelle Lohman, and it's called Rocking Moodle with H5P.
Come on, let's hear it. All right, who's ready to create some mischief?
Yes.
Yeah, come on. Come on. Yeah. Mischief? Yeah? Moodle fun? Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun for me because I actually can't remember what I put in my slides, so good luck. Essentially what I wanted to do was take you from a state of being, what the hell is H5P? Although with 3.8 now, they've kind of stolen all my thunder, so that's pretty cool. And by the end of today, you're going to be in this sort of state. You okay with that? There's only one correct answer. Do I need to mention I'm a black belt in Muay Thai, kickboxing or anything to get you on board? No? Oh, good. All right, so bonus points if you know what H5P stands for. Oh, good man, HTML5 package. All right, so essentially really, really cool for us because what it means is we don't have to worry about the whole SCORM thing anymore. Anyone built SCORM stuff before? Yeah, that's the correct expression. All right, and I still do a little bit of that, but I love H5P because it means I can do stuff really quickly. All right, it makes me look really good. Maybe not like the little guy there, but... and it also works natively in the app, even if you're not on 3.8 in the next few months. So I work in both the free and the branded app, and it works very nicely in that. So that's very cool, quite responsive. And what I love about H5P is, you know, you get these SCORM packages and they're like 200 slides long, and you feel like you're not getting anywhere very quickly. Have you ever experienced that? It was someone else's SCORM, it wasn't one you made, right? Yeah. All right. Whereas with H5P, you are very much encouraged to chunk things down. So that micro-learning, all that really cool stuff that we like to talk about. So you can use it for a whole bunch of stuff, really anything that you like. One of my favorite things to do with it is gamify. So I've got a few examples today. It's a real bummer that I can't just chuck a microphone at you when you've got questions, but I've got these wonderful Moodle people who I'm sure will just bolt across the room if need be. So I'm going to cherry pick a few of my favourite tools. Obviously there's a whole bunch of them. I work across a few different sectors. One of my favourite is the course presentation tool. Anyone use that one a lot? You can blatantly lie, I'm not going to check your homework. So yeah, beautiful. All right, so thanks Mary, you're my favourite Moodler. Okay, so course presentation is super cool because it has a lot of the other H5P tools in it. All right, so you can do a lot of stuff. And if you're into PowerPoint, anyone into PowerPoint? Yeah, no one fesses up to that anymore, right? Oh, Mary, security, anyone? So if you're into PowerPoint, then course presentation you'll be pretty familiar with. And it's more of that sort of turning page stuff like Captivate and stuff like that. It is really cool if you put surface mode on there. I've got some examples of that later on. But it's also really good for putting other things in there. I'm sure you've all put, video into PowerPoints and things before. You can do that in the course presentation and linking, and it's got the navigation built in. It's also got the ability to go to full screen. It's all done there for you, makes you look really sexy really easily. Also, you've got interactive things built into there as well, which is really, really handy. Rather than doing the traditional read this and then at the end do something, you can really mix that up as well. I quite like to use some drag and drop options in there as well, and trying to use some imagery as well. Okay, of course, copyright appropriate. Again, fake that till you make it. Surface mode. Have you used surface mode? Again, you can blatantly lie. Oh, I've got a couple. That's excellent. I love surface mode, particularly if you'd like to control where people go and how they go. All right, because people are inherently stupid, right? And they go in the wrong spot, and you built it one way and they use it a different way, and you can't figure out why. So you can do surface mode and you can control that. One little tip for that: do not turn on surface mode in the behavioural settings until the very, very end, and only after you've done a duplication of your tool. Because if you're anything like me, you outsmart yourself and you've turned it on, you want to do something else and you can't turn it off again. Right, so put it on at the end. But essentially you can put any navigation in there that you like. So I was chatting to someone earlier who was using the branching scenario tool, another really super cool one, but they couldn't figure out how to make the navigation how they wanted. Well, you can actually do that here. All right. Again, just map out how you want things to move, but really, really helpful. Great for gamification as well. They've got all drag and drop tool, whether you use this in the course presentation or whether you use it on its own. Really, really super useful. I use Shutterstock a lot. You can use any other copyright appropriate imagery. And if you're trying to get some buy-in across your faculties, build something first and show the teachers. So particularly if there's a chance to show them with some staff PD, or say to them, what's the one thing that drives you nuts that the students always ask you, and build something quickly for them, they'll fall in love with it. Right? So they won't get it until they've had a go. Again, you can either use text or imagery for this. And the really cool thing about drag and drop is that students don't associate it with quizzes as informal assessment. So they're really happy to do it over and over again. You can make it as simple or as complex as you like, and you can put in little hints and stuff in there as well. All those are just simply in the behavioural settings. So you can either just have very simple things, or in the 4 pictures there, they have to put multiple items into the correct spots. Oh look, there's more drag and drop. Gee, it must be good. Flashcards. Okay, you're allowed to fess up to your age here. Did you ever, when you were at school, have your old paper-based flashcards, cardboard? Yeah, come on, we did, yeah. Mary again. All right, that's going back too far, Mary. I don't use paper anymore, but flashcards are super cool. Now, there's a few different variations of this in H5P. You can pick whichever one you like. So you can either have one where they type in the correct answer. Be careful about that one, because obviously if their spelling or their grammar isn't very good, or their typing sucks, then they can get frustrated pretty quickly and easily. But it is super cool if they have to know the right acronym, or if the spelling is important, etc. Right? If that's not what you want, then you've got another version where all they do is think of what the answer could be and flip it over. All right? And again, you can put in a hint. If you just want to focus in on one thing, that's this one here. So there's 3 different versions of the flashcard principle, essentially. I love the branching scenario. This is the back end of one of the games that I built. So, simple tip, plan it out first. Unless you don't like yourself and you'd like some torment, go straight into it, no dramas at all. And I would use the course presentation option in there quite a bit. So you can see you've got quite a few different options in there. The advantage of using course presentation is, like I talked about before, where you've got lots of different interactions that you can drop in there. If you happen to choose the text one, you've got no control, it's just text. It's not very sexy, all right? Image, again, it'll just stick an image in there, but if you use course presentation, and that can just be one slide if you want, then you can control all the formatting. So essentially what you do is you put some information in there, and then you ask them, you know, here's a question, where are you going to go off to after that? So this is the front end of what it would look like. So this one was a staff PD. This one was making sure staff understood conflict of interest. And again, that was the typical read some policies, answer some questions. To which I responded, have we ever met? Because I've never built a course like that in my life and I don't intend to start now. So I turned to some gamification using the branching scenario. Hotspots are awesome as well. So these ones can either be used for providing content or for checking understanding. How you use it is up to you, all right? So I've got two different examples here. So we've got some tourism teachers and they basically wanted to see if, you know, students could work out the right flags, which ones were wrong, etc. Whereas the other one was just providing some information for digital technology understanding. Timeline, very cool one. We'll be honest, a little bit tricky to wrap your head around some of the settings initially, all right? But it is great. And H5P, if you're listening, which I know you will be, I'd love to be able to upload my own image. At the moment, you link out to essentially like a Wikimedia for imagery, which does work, but I like to provide my own images. But it is a very good way of visually providing a timeline. They can zoom into it, so it is pretty cool. The summary is essentially if you've got like a process that you want people to know, you know, you want them to demonstrate their understanding of thou should do this, and then you should move on to that, etc. That's where the summary comes into play. So essentially it's a series of multiple choice questions. You get asked the first one, you get it right, you then move on, and by the time you've answered them all correctly, you've got your process. The accordion, same principle as an accordion on a website. Image pairing, again, you don't have to use it for images though. You can just use it for text if you want to. The only thing is, do think about what size screens that you're building things for. Anytime you do a drag and drop of any kind, do think about image size, unless you don't like the students and you want to frustrate them, which works for me. I'm happy to do that now and again. The column tool is also one of my favorites because you can actually cascade your content. So you can have a whole bunch of content, one after the other. So something to wrap your head around in the world of e-learning is we always used to be told to avoid the scroll of death. Yeah? Used to be death by PowerPoint. Then it went scroll of death. And now because of small screens where we flick all the time, e-learning's now moving to doing that. So the column tool is great for that. Interactive video, very popular one, this one. Okay. I quite like it. I like the fact you can pause. You can, if you're really mean, you can say they can't jump ahead, they have to do each thing. That's super mean. But you can do that if you want. Let's jump into some gamification, my favourite thing. All right, so here's one for staff to understand things like thou should not leave work keys on the desk and walk away and let the students pick them up and stuff like that, right? So again, it was, well, there's a staff code of conduct one should adhere to, and you should do an acknowledgement, and you should make sure you understand things. I'm like, boring. So I gamified it, and I predominantly used the course presentation tool. Okay, so I just made a series of levels. If you're going to gamify, have some consistency in your navigation. So the wording and how you're going to set that up. So essentially what I did was I left in the navigation and I used like a hotspot tool here, drag and drop. So essentially on the back end of things I've set up that all I want them to do is drag the baddie to identify the key. is the big risk there. You can do the same thing with the branching scenario. Okay, so again, set them up with some info, get them to make some choices. You can either go, that was a crappy choice, what were you thinking? Or, you know, you can actually go, hey, that wasn't an awesome choice, now this happens. And you can keep going down the rabbit warren. Very quickly, just some tips that I would give you. I generally disable embedding. There's a new word for YouTube later on. For embedding, I do enable printing, and I always enable full screen. They're things that just make life nice and easy. If you're fairly new to H5P and you know your Moodle admin, have a chat to them. Make sure they've optimised a few settings for you to get the most out of it, because it does have like reporting and things. I'm just going to flick through slides because otherwise I'm in imminent danger of being rugby tackled from the stage. Do jump into your behaviour settings. I'm around all day today and tomorrow if you want to ask or see anything. Otherwise, that's me. And I'm going to open up the floor to questions, although Mary's in charge because I'm very afraid of Mary.
No, thank you very much. We certainly do have time for questions. It's about 4 minutes for questions, but if Tom Avernier is here, if he'd like to come to get his presentation ready while Michelle is answering some questions. And do you want to, you could come and answer them here, Michelle, if you want, on this microphone, or run around, it's up to you.
Michelle, could you say something about accessibility?
Something about accessibility. Security. Probably the major thing I would say is think about even just the simplest thing like alt text for images and things like that. So chasing the holy grail of AAA compliance with accessibility is a challenge, I'll be honest. But making sure that you use heading styles, that you've got alt text for images, etc. I'm not going to speak on behalf of H5P when it comes to their holy grail with accessibility. They have just sent out some more information about that. I personally haven't encountered any serious issues with it.
My understanding is if you put I would have thought if you put the alt text on all the images on those screens that they stop them working.
Not in my experience, no.
Wouldn't you know where to drag it?
You've got to be creative, man, in how you create these things. We need to talk. Come on, I double dare you.
Easy one. Easy one. Easy one. So I'm an admin and I'm desperate. I didn't get it to work with the app. Could you come and look over my configuration and try to debug? Thanks, Michelle. Sure can. Thanks.
I'll cost you a coffee and I'll come help you. No worries. But wait, there's more.
Thank you. Do you embed the content on your Moodle site and books and so forth?
You can do that.
Yeah, but do you?
Do
or do you encourage to make it more visual on the first site and not click the icon?
We need to talk. I'll show you my sites. They're all visual. Embedding can be part of that, but just being creative around how you set up even just the initial course, yeah, you can do some amazing things. So happy to show you some examples.
Thank you.
One last question.
Make it a good one, no pressure. Does it involve coffee, chocolate?
No? Okay then. Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you. Okay. So just waiting a few seconds for people to come out and to go out and come in, and then we'll do our final presentation, which is a 15-minute presentation.
If you don't mind, you can see.
Okay, so for our final presentation, so a 15-minute presentation, we have Thomas Vernier from the Centre de Ressources Pédagogiques in Belgium, who's going to talk about building a 100% digital escape game with Moodle. I think you're really going to enjoy this, so if you do have questions, as it's our last presentation, please come and see me and Thomas afterwards, so that we can go down for coffee, and happy to answer any questions after this downstairs. Okay.
Hello, so I'm Thomas. Not a good start. So I come from Belgium, and I apologize because I not speak good English. I'm working for the Centre de Ressources Pédagogiques. It's a department of the Ministry of Education in Belgium, and we help teachers with their digital projects. So today we are talking about escape game with Moodle. In this presentation, I would like to share with you my experiment about the elaboration of this project. First, I will explain what a serious escape game is. After that, I will explain why I did this project. I will also talk about how I found the inspiration and about the writing of the scenario. After that, I will talk about the creation of the enigmas, and before the conclusion, I will explain how I replaced the human game master in Moodle. What's a serious escape? Usually, it's a game where gamers need to escape for a closed room. There is a limited time, and the gamers play in group. To win, the players must collaborate to solve some enigmas and some puzzles to open a final door. Why is it serious? In an educational version of the game, there is always a pedagogical objective and pedagogical contents. And another important dimension is the two debriefings. The first one is to let the gamer share their emotions. When the calm came back, the teacher should propose the second debriefing. It's the moment where the learnings are formalized and shared with all the learners. The first popular escape game was digital and came from Japan. It's also in Japan that this kind of game was created for the first time in real life. It's probably arrived in Europe by Hungary in 2010. Since 2017, the escape game became serious in the French education. Lots of teachers use it in their courses. Just a little challenge for me. It was not little, it was big. Finally, I'm working with education advisor. They wrote some documents to help new teachers, and they wanted to propose an alternative to the traditional PDF. At the end of the meeting, my boss challenged me to create a serious escape game about this document. So finally, why we did create a serious escape game? Just to know if it is possible. When I accepted the challenge, I was sure that everything I would need was already online. So I explored the web. Maybe the serious escape game built by UC Louvain in Belgium was a good basis for my project. But the goal of this project was to discover the Moodle platform and not the document. So this lead was denied. My second idea was to explore the website of the French team Scale. There are lots of interesting resources, but nothing on Moodle. So this second idea was also denied. But honestly, my visit on the Scape website was interesting. I have not found models, but some good advice. Define the pedagogical objectives and contents. This step was already checked. Indeed, the objectives and the contents were given to me by the education advisor. The next step of my project was to write the scenario according to good advice. What is the good advice for the scenario? The scenario had to be consistent with the objectives and the tools. The Moodle tools in this case. The scenario also must be immersive. It's very important for the motivation of the learners. And finally, the scenario had to be challenging. After a long time of reflection, I had the idea of the computer virus. It was a consistent scenario with the use of Moodle. There was a challenge because there was only 1 hour before the destruction of the learner's files. The game was immersive because Moodle's tools gave me the opportunity to create interactive events such as appearing and disappearing files. What is exactly my scenario? The learner is a teacher specialized in evaluation. He must speak about this subject in 1 hour. But there is a little problem. His Moodle space was attacked by a computer virus. His file are now encrypted or corrupted. He must solve this situation before his presentation. The enigmas. In the education advisor's document, I found 8 chapters. So I create 8 sections in Moodle. And I needed to create about 8 enigmas. The objective of the enigmas was to invite the learners to discover the full document. So each enigma must force the learner to explore one part of the document to solve it. Now I will explain you some enigmas. In this enigma, the solution is directly in the text. But which information is relevant? A clue helps the learners to must find true values. The publication year of one book, the publication year of another book, and the number of times the word apprentissage appears in the page. For the rest, it's just a simple addition. To solve this enigma, the learner must find 3 elements: a coded word in the page, a scissor wheel hidden behind a web link, and configuration rules hidden in a video. It's me. In this last example, in this third enigma, the learners must use their ears to find the solution. In this page, learners can hear music in a book. On another page, the learners can find a piano. If they play the songs heard before, the code appears. In this last example, the last example, I proposed a game of the 7 difference. First, the learners read a text, then they receive an author. In the second version of the text, they must click on the arrows. I wanted to propose a non-linear game, where Enigma 1 is not necessarily followed by Enigma 2. It was for me the best way to give a sensation of freedom to the learner. It's the same organization of a real-life escape game. The problem with the conception of a non-linear game is the complexity of its elaboration. Quickly, I got lost in my enigma. My structure became a maze for me. But there is a simple solution. The plan. It's very important to view the relation between the enigmas and the different paths in the game. But there is another problem with the escape game on Moodle. The game master. In a live escape game, there is always a game master to advise the gamers. This is not possible online. So I create an avatar in the Moodle platform. Hi, I'm Doc, and I can help you in this adventure. This avatar is always with the gamers. For that, I use the glossary link, but also I forget the name, the test with multiple tries. Quiz with multiple tries. So each try, I give a clue with the avatar. Conclusions. Did they learn? My objective was the exploration of the document by the learners. But if they're learning anything, it's impossible to be sure. But we can test their knowledge. Therefore, at the end of my scenario, I included a test, a quiz, which took the form of the audience question after the fictional speech of the learner. For this part of the scenario, I used a traditional Moodle test. What are the results of this project? Of course, I had to adjust some details, but globally the people who tested the game were positive. Now, I have to test the game in the real condition with the teacher who are involved. I hope that the results will be as good as they are now. And finally, my own conclusion. What did I learn with this project? A serious escape game needs a balance between the game and the pedagogic. On the pedagogical side, we have the enigma, the objective, and the lesson content. On the game side, we have the story, the difficulty of the enigma, and the game design. This balance is very fragile. If it's too pedagogical, we lose the motivation. And if it's too fun, we lose the learner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're going to break for coffee now, but as I said, if you would like to ask some questions, please ask them here or downstairs. But I just moved you back onto that one. I thought that might be useful for some helpful web links. So thank you, and thank you to all the presenters this afternoon, and see you for more soon.
Yeah, you see when the conference is finished, then we have time.
I also thought about what you know about if I would like to run the practice. I was trying to I do know that for our team, yes. So I think it will only run those classes if you say you want to run
So I keep heading to sessions along the way, meet 20 people. Yeah. I get to the sessions, yeah, it's happy all day. How are you? Yeah. Good? Yeah. Yeah, you get to go first. No, what? He seems to they're the most, the most the same disability Yes. Well, no, things outside. You got. Yeah.
Speaking of people who are present, you talked to Steve Redford.
No, I did talk to Macri.
Oh, yeah. Steve was looking at it.
You're fine. Yes. Voice space.
Yes.
You find me behind the drum kit at some point. Yes.
There it is. Carrier is Sardinia. Oh, here it is. Oh, it's very near. Oh, I can walk there. Yeah. That's at 8 o'clock. Yes. And this must be our entrance. Maybe two. How do I get to, my daughter is here with me. How do I get to?
Catalonia Station.
Metro, what's the closest metro? Train. Yeah, just the train. Yeah. Is there a train station?
Yo no me escuché ni idea.
So yeah, I agree with you on that. And then I will get to Maria.
Yo pensava que estava per una etapa que si surt surt i si no surt no surt. Això t'ho dic, que si surt surt i si no surt no surt.
La fotògrafa. Sí, que aquesta dona, tia, aquesta dona.
De veritat.
Hem de treure això, no?
Sí, per això jo li ofereixo les persones titulades, per això. Tu i jo.
Ah, vale.
Esto es lo que hablamos de...
Sí, fue bajo blanca.
Estudiar 19 ya